Hey, good afternoon to you. It is 4:06 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. Coming up on the program, Aaron Sibarium is going to be with us at 5 o'clock, a reporter for the Washington Free Beacon, with a deeply important exclusive piece of reporting today on one of the nation's leading medical schools and how that education is being destroyed by the left. Don't miss that. Again, ahead at 5. You can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Some very interesting stories with regard to Congress and our immigration system today. You may know earlier this week we were talking about how there's going to be this vote to repeal D.C.'s non-citizen voting law. And it passed today, that's good news out of the House. We'll see what happens in the Senate. Presumably it'll die, but here's what's interesting. The House passed the legislation today, the New York Times reports, that would undo a District of Columbia law allowing non-citizens to vote in local elections, part of a broader bid by Republicans to amplify false claims. What do you mean false claims? It's real. The whole reason they can repeal a law is because it exists. This is crazy. So, and guess who helped them pass it? 52 Democrats in the House. The majority of the Democrats voted against it, but 52 Democrats voted for it. Meanwhile, over in the United States Senate, Chuck Schumer is once again attempted to pass a piece of legislation today that would only hand out more work permits for foreign nationals pouring across our border. It is not border security, it's amnesty. And that bill failed again today, and it had even less Democrat support this time. So some interesting dynamics happening now. For more on this, I want to turn to Andrew Arthur. He's resident fellow in law and policy for the Center for Immigration Studies, and he joins us on the phone. Andrew, good to have you back, sir.
Thanks so much for having me, Vince.
Let me start with the non-citizen voting law. Just to help my frame of reference here, it is currently illegal. It's against federal law for non-citizens to vote in federal elections, right?
Yeah, no, if aliens vote in federal elections, it's actually a criminal offense, and it's also a ground of deportability.
Right. And so in D.C., a couple years back, they said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to allow non-citizens, including illegal immigrants, to vote in our elections. And Congress does have the authority over the affairs of Washington, D.C. And today the House moves this bill through that says, no, you're not allowing non-citizens to vote in the district.
Yeah, no, the House Oversight Committee has jurisdiction of the District of Columbia, and the House itself has the ability to repeal any law passed by the District of Columbia under the terms of the Home Rule Act. And yeah, I mean, this is one of those bills that always makes me wonder, because I'm like, oh, does the Cuban charge d'affaires get to vote in local elections, or how about the Finnish lady that's the head of the IMF? Is she allowed to vote too? I mean, the whole thing is ridiculous. But yeah, especially when it's in the nation's capital, that you have this rule that allows aliens to vote in local elections, for mayor and city council and things like that. Yeah, it's no wonder that Congress did it. It's just sort of a surprise that so many Democrats went along with it.
Yeah, it's a surprise that Democrats were with Republicans in repealing it.
Yeah, absolutely, because again, it's definitely not the majority, but, they've long promoted things like this. We certainly see it in parts of, Maryland, suburban Maryland,
yeah.
Where, they have laws like this out in California. There are a couple of localities that have this, and it seems to primarily be a very liberal idea. Everybody gets a say, but, I think that they've realized that they've gone too far on this, and a lot of people who are in tight races definitely want to be on the right side of the public on this.
Yeah, it's amazing. So the storyline going into today's vote, though, in the House, the media has been running around saying Republicans, that is, are trying to ban something that's not even happening in America. Well, actually it is. It's happening in a couple of municipalities at least. And clearly there's an appetite among Democrats to allow more foreign nationals to vote in our elections.
Yeah, in fact, I recently wrote a piece that talked about the two impacts that this can have. And when I was at House Oversight, we had a couple of hearings on the prevalency of non-citizen voting in the United States illegally. And, it's one of those things that's difficult to assess
Right.
And they'll always say, oh, it doesn't happen that often, but it's sort of like, aliens or illegal aliens committing crimes. Nobody actually compiles the stats. Nobody forensically goes back to see whether it happened, and so they could just say, oh, it only happens every now and again. But Chris Kobach, who's the current AG of Kansas, and Hans Spakowski over at the Heritage Foundation, was probably the leading expert on alien voting. They came and testified back when I was working for Chairman DeSantis back in 2015, and talked about specific instances in which this has had a real impact. So again, it's one of those things that it's almost impossible to judge because nobody looks for it, and so consequently they just elide it by saying, oh, it doesn't happen.
Well, the other piece is that we just let in somewhere in the vicinity of 10 million people into our country since Joe Biden came into office. And as a result of that, a normal country, to the extent that any country would allow that to happen, would think, okay, what are the second order effects? How do we try and minimize the damage here? And one of the ways is to make sure that we foreclose on the ability of any foreign national to vote in federal elections. Doesn't that seem like common sense?
Yeah, it does seem like common sense. And think about it, Vince. If you're one of these people who comes to the United States, let's say you go to Boston and you go to New York, they're giving you, cash payments, they're giving you a place to live, they're sending your kid to school. You probably think that you might have the right to vote because we're giving, a lot of these people things that American citizens, poor, struggling, disadvantaged American citizens don't have access to. And, so there's a real concern. Keep in mind, Vince, there are two different federal laws, one criminal, one immigration related, that bans this. Congress plainly thought that it was a problem. So to say that it's not a problem or doesn't exist is probably fallacious.
It's gaslighting is what it is. So let me move to the other issue. In the United States Senate today, the so-called bipartisan border bill came back up for a vote. Chuck Schumer pushing it forward. It's no longer bipartisan. Senator James Lankford didn't even vote to pass it. He voted against it today. Here's a speech, a small clip of James Lankford's remarks on the subject today.
We need to solve this in the administration. We need to solve this in Congress. I wish that's what we were doing today, but we're not. When Senator Murphy and Senator Sinema and I started working on this months ago, we were working to solve it. We were not able to get that done. But today is not a bill, today is a prop. Today is a political messaging exercise. Today is an opportunity to be able to have a vote that's sitting out there so people can send fundraising emails out later tonight and say, look, I tried to do something, when no work was actually done to try to get something done and completed and passed today. In fact, I anticipate there'll be fewer votes today than there were 2 months ago when this came up on both sides of the aisle.
He's right.
Because everyone sees this for what it is. It is not an effort to actually make law. It is an effort to do political messaging.
And in addition, the bill itself was a disaster. I mean, even the Border Patrol Union, which initially endorsed the bill, started to walk away from it and said, actually, we just wanted the framework passed. We were going to move for amendments to change the bill in really meaningful ways. Tell us your thoughts on all of this, Andrew.
So, yeah, I mean, there are a couple of issues with this bill. One, it's nothing like anybody talks about it. I suffer cognitive dissonance whenever I hear Chuck Schumer or, other people talk about how this is a tough bill. What this does, Vince, is it takes all of the things that the Biden administration has been doing, catch and release at the border, and it actually puts them into statute. It actually goes ahead and blesses all of the things that the Biden administration has done. And in that way, it would also undermine all of those cases, primarily, in Republican states, Texas versus this or Arizona versus that, the states have been doing to try to undo some of these Biden things. It literally would make them law. It would make it, here's really the worst part of it. One, it's critical to note, this doesn't end catch and release. It codifies catch and release. And, post hoc blesses everything that the Biden administration has done. And here's the part that often gets missed. It would also make it next to impossible for the next administration, be it Donald Trump or anyone else, who wants to follow a different tack to actually secure the border, because right now detention is mandatory for every alien that is apprehended entering the United States illegally, and the Biden administration is ignoring those mandates. But if this bill were to pass, because it permits the release of those individuals, every alien that came to the United States illegally, whether they were released, if they were released, they got released. But if they weren't released, they would go to federal court, they would file a habeas action and demand to be released from detention. In
Yeah.
fact, the only reason that the Trump administration was able to detain as many people as it did was because the Supreme Court in 2018 said it's mandatory language. We don't have the opportunity to get involved and say these people should be released. This would allow releases, which means that it would basically require release.
Well, it would also create incentives for people to pour into the country, too. It would accelerate work permits, and it would also increase dramatically the number of green cards that the United States hands out, which is the beginning of the pathway to citizenship. So this was not about securing the border. It was about expanding the opportunities for foreign nationals to come into the United States.
Yeah, no. In fact, this would truly drive a continued surge into the United States. The most vaunted part of this, Vince, was the 5,000 per day limit. Ooh, I'm going to use that authority on day one, said Joe Biden. But if you look at the, historical averages between FY 2017, FY 2019, agents apprehended on average 1,354 people per day. So this would, more than triple the historic average and treat it like it's the new normal. It's important for the American people not to accept what's going on at the southwest border is the new normal. And, the drafters of this bill, and, I actually have sympathy for everybody that was involved in this because I think that the heavy hand of DHS was involved.
Yeah.
And, they're like, oh, this will do what you want. And, quite frankly, I think there'll probably be an investigation in the future to find out how much Alejandro Mayorkas had to do with the drafting of this bill.
Can I ask, because you follow immigration and its news so closely, ever since this bill came up and then it died the first time, the way the media has talked about it, they say that, Donald Trump wanted the bill to die because he loves this issue politically. He wants the border in chaos as a rationale to vote for him. I have never once seen a single person attribute that quote. I've never seen anybody attribute that. And in fact, just for the reasons you and I just discussed, this border bill was an atrocity. It wasn't really a border bill. It would open the border up even wider. So for that reason, it should die. And for that reason, Donald Trump should be rooting against it. Have you ever actually seen anything to support the idea that Trump said, don't fix the border crisis so I can get reelected?
No, actually, quite the opposite. I actually went looking for exactly what you say. People are always like, oh, he said that. There was a post that was on Truth Social that, said that Republicans should vote against the bill. But it never says vote against the bill so that the border can keep being a disaster. And again, I've never spoken to President Trump personally, but I have a feeling that he understood, or his advisors understood exactly what was in this bill and understood that it was going to tie his hands on what will be a signature issue of his in the 2024, what has been a signature issue in the 2024 campaign and a major issue for the American people. It would be, I can't say this enough. It would make securing the border again, bringing it down to 1,000 people a day or 1,300 a day, impossible if this were to pass.
All right. Thank you very much, as always, Andrew Arthur, for your wisdom, expertise, and your conversation today. Good to talk to you today. All right. Sam is calling in from Alexandria. He's on line one. Hello, Sam. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, Vince. How you doing today?
I'm doing great, Sam. What's on your mind?
Outstanding. Well, in listening to the last caller, I was thinking about, the Democrats are always about helping people out. I think it would be hugely helpful if that it is in law mandated that to every entrance to a voting poll, as well as each person that checks you in, has to let everybody know in every various language that you must be a U.S. citizen to vote in a federal election, and that if you are not and you do, that it is a federal crime punishable by, it takes you 10 seconds to say it. You put it on a big sign with, the 10 or 15 different languages now that you can vote in. And, maybe like not much of a big deal, but to me, I thought, well, that's one more thing that somebody may scratch their head and say, well, I'm not a U.S. citizen just because I can, get a free phone and I can get this and that. So
no confusion. You'll have gigantic signs in your own language telling you that it is a serious felony to vote in an election that you're not eligible to vote in. I like that idea. I mean, we waste a lot of money on signs anyway. Stuff like Joe Biden personally paid for this, and actually that's not true. Taxpayers did. Joe Biden's just taking credit for it. So why not signs telling people to follow the law? Sure. Although I will say, Sam, you do make me think. One of the things, I can't help it, I hate 50 languages at the ballot box. What is that?
Oh,
I
do too.
You show up and you're like, in the ballot's written in like 10 different languages, and I'm thinking, how about English?
Yeah.
How about the unifying language of our country? How about just English? What happened to assimilation? Instead, we've got a million little countries inside of our country, and the left is working really hard to make sure that none of us ever have anything in common, can get along. How about no? I'm not for that. I'm for the let's actually unify side of things.
Yeah, we lost that battle about 2 decades ago, sadly.
It's awful. Every time I don't vocalize it all the time, but I walk in, I'm like, why are there 50 languages on this thing? Just English. That's the one.
That and toca número uno para ayuda.
I'll take your word for it. Thank you. Thanks, Sam. I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna put that through the internet and see what it turns out later. Hopefully, we didn't have to censor anything. All right, stay with us. We've got a lot of breaking news today, including, have you seen what they're doing to our hospitals? Forget all the languages. How about just the ability to heal people? The left is ruining that too. Aaron Sibarium coming up with a jaw-dropping, unfortunate, and pressing piece of breaking news. Stay with us. Hey, good afternoon to you. It is 4:35 here at News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. Coming up on the program, Aaron Sibarium is going to be with us just half an hour from now. He's a reporter for the Washington Free Beacon. He's got an exclusive report today that approximately 50% of UCLA's medical students have been failing basic tests of medical competence as a result of the school's effort to change the racial composition of the student body. It turns out there are costs to not using meritocracy as your measure for whether or not you get into medical school. Just an upsetting report coming up. Aaron Sibarium with the exclusive on this, getting a lot of attention today, as well it should. And you can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. In fact, on this issue, on UCLA Medical School, which, as I understand it, was one of the nation's leading medical schools, apparently not so much anymore, ruining the education system there. It wasn't that long ago. Remember Don Lemon, or some people know him as Don Lemon? He used to work at CNN, and they fired him, I think. Is that how it went down? I hardly care, actually, about his career. But the point is, he was involved in a piece of audio that I want to share with you. After he left CNN, he goes off to Twitterverse, and now X, and sets up a show there. So he's got his own show on X. And for like 5 minutes, he had some sort of arrangement with Elon Musk until he annoyed Elon Musk so much that Elon's like, I'm not interested in any arrangement with you. You're just like everybody else. If you want to make money on my platform, go for it. But I'm not giving you any special help here because you're a jerk. That was basically Elon Musk's assessment. He sat down with Don Lemon and concluded very quickly, this guy's a jerk. I don't even know why I would be in business with him. But during that conversation that, thank the good Lord, was recorded, they had this exchange, and Don Lemon pretended for a minute and a half, either he pretended or he truly is a complete moron, that he had no idea that there would be costs to lowering standards at medical schools. Take a listen to this.
And let's talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. All right, that's been a target of yours lately on X. There was a repost of Ben Shapiro that you claim that DEI is killing people. Specifically, you point to medicine. You claim that DEI programs are putting people at risk. Do you really believe this to be true? And what evidence do you have to support it?
What I was referring to there was that if we lower the standards for doctors, so that they, if the test for a doctor is lowered, then the probability of them making a mistake and killing someone is obviously going to be higher.
Wait, say that again. I'm not sure I understand what you said.
What do you mean you don't understand it? It's a simple logic exercise. Elon Musk is, he's practically a human computer. He's, if you lower the standards, you're going to increase the risks. That's not hard to understand. Is it hard to understand? Maybe for Don Lemon.
What I was referring to there was that if we lower the standards for doctors, such so that they, if the test for a doctor is lowered, then the probability of them making a mistake and killing someone is obviously going to be higher.
Wait, say that again. I'm not sure I understand what you said. I want to make sure I understand what you're saying.
Yes, if the standards for passing medical exams and becoming a doctor, or especially something like a surgeon, if the standards are lowered, then the probability that the surgeon will make a mistake is higher. They're making mistakes in their exam. They may make mistakes with people, and that may result in people dying.
What evidence do you have, though, that they're lowering the standards? There's no evidence of that.
I believe there is.
There's no evidence of that, Elon. What is the evidence?
I believe they have literally lowered the standards at Duke University, and that is what the article was referring to.
There's no evidence.
Saying they have not lowered the standards?
There's no evidence about lowering standards, and I think that there is.
I believe that is a false statement you're making.
And of course, the stupidity continued. And Don Lemon only views this through a racial lens. He was like, well, the overwhelming majority of doctors are white, he says, using some sort of outdated data. That's not even, I don't even think that's true. I saw a number earlier today. I think it's just over 50% of doctors in America are white. It hardly matters. The key, of course, is what is their competence? Male, female, black, white, yellow, purple. What is your competence as a medical professional? Are you actually able to diagnose people and treat them in a way that helps them rather than hurts them? That's kind of the key. And Don Lemon cares more about the skin color than he does the outcomes, which is really unfortunate. It's a bigoted way to view the world. And so he's challenging Elon Musk over basic principles. This is so stupid. This is applicable everywhere, especially places where the stakes are high. Medicine, stakes are very high. Airline pilot, stakes are very high. It's not, oh, well, we need to diversify. Okay, sure. Minimum standards, we can't lower them. We can't lower the standards in order to achieve this outcome. That's moronic. The same is true in the American military. If this is what happens when you had, the left led this charge. We need women in combat positions. Okay, well, the current standards to get into combat positions pretty high. What are we going to do? We got to lower the standards. Why would we lower the standards? Why don't we just say if women meet the existing standard, if you want them in combat, then that's how they can join combat. No, we have to lower the standards, they said. Not enough women are getting through. What are you doing? What are you doing if not destroying? Which is, of course, exactly what they're doing. And so Elon Musk, in a very simple way, and this is encouraging, by the way, like being able to think logically in a simple way and then become as filthy rich as Elon Musk has, it's possible, apparently. These are just simple thoughts that he's allowing himself to say out loud in a world where people are silenced into not saying true things out loud. He said, wait a second, if you lower the standards, you increase the risks. That's huge. That's huge. So that's Elon Musk. And again, we'll be talking coming up to Aaron Sibarium, who's got more evidence that what Elon was saying was totally right. He was talking about Duke University there. But in this case, UCLA Medical School is a dumpster fire right now because of what the left has done to it. Matt's calling in from Rockville now, line 3. Matt, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, Vince. How you doing?
I'm good.
So I think all of this is actually almost creating a racism because, for instance, I wouldn't want to go to a doctor who's 30, 35, or 40 simply because I'm going to worry that they passed under lower standards, and purely out of self-preservation, I wouldn't want to go to them. Conversely, I would absolutely go to a black doctor who's 70 years old because then I would know that they passed under the same standards that any other person had to. So it kind of feels like it's creating a racism and forcing an issue that doesn't need force.
Well, this is
purely in the name of diversity. It's putting the health and welfare of people at risk.
This is the same effect that honest assessments of so-called affirmative action have yielded, which is that people say, wow, if it's a real burden that you use racial prejudice in admissions or hiring, because the end result is that people then start becoming suspicious that the only reason certain people are in certain positions is because they were advantaged not based on their merits but based on their skin color, which is an awful thing to hang around somebody's shoulders. So instead of doing that, why don't we just choose people on the merits, and there won't be any distrust on this issue. And in fact, Matt, I have a buddy who we've had on the show before, Sagar and Jetty. He tweeted earlier today, or X'd, whatever they call it now. He posted earlier today, look, going forward, I'm going to be looking to see what year you graduated from medical school. If it's any time between 20 and 24, no thank you, I'm going somewhere else. So there are some far-reaching consequences here that include sowing doubt in the public by virtue of lowering standards. You're totally right about that.
Absolutely. And treat everything like they do sports. Hey, the NBA is mostly black. Why? Well, they're the better athletes. And if it turns out that, white people are better at this, okay, you know what, if you want to give out some grants to help diversify it, that's great. But don't lower standards purely in the name of diversity when, in fact, you may be affecting people. And you may be, in their case, they may be affecting people of their own race and causing higher death rates because their standards are low. And so
the other piece here,
effect of,
the other piece here, Matt, to your point, is that actually what's happening by and large is the left has failed so many people early in their lives that by the time we get to the medical school question, they're deciding to move the goalposts in order to cover up for their own failures. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of these government-run schools that are failing black kids right now at the earliest levels. They're failing them at the elementary level and not succeeding. So we look to somewhere like, Fairfax County is a great example of this, where you've got the Thomas Jefferson School of Science and Technology, #1 high school in the entire country. And the left gets control of the Fairfax County School Board, of course, and then takes a look at this and goes, you know what we should do? Let's destroy that. Let's stop being #1 in the entire country. And they start getting involved in this racial meddling. We need to change the racial composition of the school. And so they just change the standards. They lower the standards in order to change the racial composition of the school, rather than address the more critical issue, which is, why are these students of varying skin colors not prepared to enter that school at the previous high level? And instead of dealing with that problem, they just move the goalposts in order to cover up that they failed these kids in the first place.
And not to mention the whole scholarship thing that they had down there, which was just, we're not going to tell the people who are white. Screw them.
Yeah, and then, of course, like the stupidity of that whole thing was like more white kids ended up getting into school because of the way they changed the standards. It's like they have no idea what they're even doing, the way they do some of this meddling. Thank you, Matt. I appreciate the call. A lot of smart and interesting points, of course. Keith is in Vienna, line 2. Keith, good afternoon.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, sir.
Yeah, all something just kind of popped into my head that the thing Elon Musk should have said, if he was really quick, is, okay, Don, you're black. Let's say to let you into medical school. I don't want you anywhere near me.
Yeah, could you imagine? Can you imagine getting rolled into the operating room and Don Lemon walks in with a knife? You're like, let's call this off.
Yeah, pretty much. Anyway, great show. Thank you.
Thanks, Keith. I appreciate that. Jules, calling in from Sterling now, line 1. Jules, you're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Vince, can you hear me, sir?
Oh, I hear you. Great, Jules. What's on your mind?
Hey, sorry for calling in late. I'm a habitual listener and also a veteran voter of 2+ decades. Like to contribute that as well.
Love that.
Anyway, when we talk about DEI, I think they got the acronym wrong. It should have been DIE because it has completely destroyed humanity as far as the American people are concerned. I'll let you expound upon that later. My next concern or comment is when, as a white heterosexual male, married, employed, veteran, we can go down the demographics as far as you want, but when is my opinion going to be considered anymore? Because we have completely strayed from that.
Well, also, we've incentivized prejudice against all of the things you've just described, which is that we've normalized bigotry against all of those categories, which is a product of the first thing you said, which is DIE. Which really is a killer ideology. It is intentionally meant to create division among the populace and to get people fighting amongst themselves and considering each other in shallow, bigoted ways. And it dresses itself up in the language of equality, although that's not what it's actually for. It's why they use the phrase anti-racism rather than saying just being against racism, which you're supposed to be. They say anti-racism, and it's literally it's what it really means is prejudice. That's what they're talking about. Remember, what was that guy, Ibram X. Kendi, whose real name is Henry Rogers, but he gives himself a fancy name like he's a part of some sort of civil rights struggle, like he's Malcolm X. And his view is that the answer to past discrimination is current discrimination. That's what he says. That's his ideology. And and when people hear that, they're like, well, that's insane. Why would the answer to past discrimination be current discrimination? Shouldn't we not discriminate on the basis of race? But no, they're actually for that, which is deeply upsetting and, as you point out, deeply destructive. Jules, thank you very much. Appreciate the call, sir, and your service.
Thank you, Vince. Appreciate it.
All right, hold on. I've got more coming up. Let's see, and more of your calls for sure. And Aaron Sibarium is just minutes away. Can't wait to talk to him. He's got a really important report today. We were talking a little bit earlier this hour to Andrew Arthur from the Center for Immigration Studies about what is happening on America's border right now. And for more on that, Bill Malugin yesterday was out there on the southern border talking to illegal immigrants. What a world, huh? Just people coming to the United States and then they're like, yeah, I'll do an interview. Yeah, they just break right into the country. Oh, a reporter, sure, I'll answer your questions. And they're all proudly talking about where they're coming from. Here's Bill Malugin asking each and every one of them.
We talked to these guys. There was not a single one of them from Mexico. Take a listen to this. Where are you guys from? What country?
Pakistan.
Pakistan.
India.
India. Where are you from?
Turkey.
Turkey?
Yeah.
Turkey. Okay.
India.
India. Where are you guys from?
Turkey.
Turkey. Turkey.
Did you know India and Turkey are right, south of us, apparently? They're right on our southern border. India and Turkey. They're so close. I had no idea.
Where are you guys from?
China.
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 Ecuador? Where are you guys from?
India.
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 India. Sagar Baba.
India.
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 So are they claiming asylum? Is that what's happening? They're fleeing the oppression of India? Is that what's happening here?
India.
India.
India?
Yes. India.
India. All India?
Yeah, India.
India. Iran.
Iran.
You're all from Iran. Why'd you come?
No freedom.
No freedom?
Yes, in Iran. Iran is a dangerous country. Mm-hmm. No freedom for speak, for writing, for singing, for thinking.
And then take a look at this. We met up with a local resident out here, Corey Gotero. He's former U.S. military. He goes out and he collects all of these discarded passports and ID cards from these illegal immigrants from all around the world as they cross here in the Jacumba area. He's got an entire room full of them. You'll see passports, IDs from China, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, many others.
You wouldn't do that. If you were claiming asylum, if you had a legal claim to asylum here in the United States, a rightful claim, you wouldn't discard the paperwork that identifies who you are. The only reason you do that is to further the scam that you're perpetrating on the American people.
Notice many of them are burned or shredded or destroyed in some way as these illegal aliens try to destroy some of these documents as soon as they arrive here in the United States, trying to hide who they are and where they've been.
This is a document crisis that the Biden administration should actually be looking into, not raiding Mar-a-Lago with deadly force.
And Gotero says that is a security concern.
They're just dropping this stuff on the ground to come here and assume a new identity. So that's a little bit scary. With my military background and seeing the people that are coming across, that male, these are all military-aged males. People keep saying that. I've got the proof right here.
Yeah, here's their birth date. They're military-aged, in case it wasn't obvious by looking at them in the first place. I'm not a biologist or anything, but they look like military-aged males. Coming up, Aaron Sibarium will talk about what's happening with the biologists' medical school. It's collapsing. Aaron Sibarium has the report.